It's Wednesday, which means we got the initial injury report for Dolphins Patriots Week 2. We'll look at the major injury news and what Mike McDaniel had to say on a couple of these injuries. Plus, the back half of today's show, we will look at Week 2. How can Miami potentially bounce back and get back to 500 after a brutal Week 1? This is Dolphins Today. I am Nick Roloff. We'll start with the injury reports. 8 players on the Dolphins injury report. James Daniels placed on IR earlier this week. Austin Jackson, Benito Jones, Darren Waller, Storm Duck, Ethan Bonner, and Jaylen Wright, all DNPs. No surprise there with Wright and Bonner. Honestly, there was really no surprise DNPs. We knew Duck was out for multiple weeks. We probably knew Waller was a DNP. We knew Jackson was a DNP. We knew Benito Jones was unlikely to play this week as well. The only surprises, if you will, is Jaylen Waddle, limited with that shoulder injury, but I expect him to go on Sunday. Ashtyn Davis played on Sunday. He'll likely play again this Sunday. New England's injury report is certainly more interesting than ours. Now, they have major pieces not practicing. Gonzalez still has not returned to practice for the Patriots. He was a DNP with that hamstring injury. His status on Thursday will certainly likely decide if he plays on Sunday. Landry, a DNP. He had 2.5 sacks last week. And the Patriots starting right tackle, Morgan Moses, dealing with a foot injury as well. He was a DNP. Keishon, Boutte, Elliss, Mapu, and Woods, all limited or full. I'd expect those 4 to be able to go on Sunday for New England, but the 4 players that were a DNP on the left, certainly one to keep an eye on. Listen, last week in our Week 1 preview between Indianapolis and Miami, we only got 487 likes, and we lost. Let's get the vibes higher. I know most of you want the Dolphins to win this game against the rival Patriots to get back to 500 on the year. Let's get 500 likes at minimum. Hit that thumbs up icon. Let's get the vibes turned around. All right, Mike McDaniel did speak to the media, so let's look at what he had to say on some of these injuries. We'll start with Austin Jackson. He was a DNP on the injury report. He is likely not going to play, so we're looking at next man up at right tackle. And it's already Week 2. Now, who is that next man up? I forecasted earlier this week it would likely be Larry Borom, since he was the right tackle for Miami in the preseason and joint practices with Jackson out. That will be the case. Mike McDaniel said he's preparing for Borom to start at right tackle, even though he is not ruling Austin Jackson out at this point. Also briefly mentioned tough determination placing Daniels on IR because he was on the border of 4 weeks, so it is likely he will return Week 6 against the Los Angeles Chargers. But back to Borom replacing Austin Jackson in all likelihood. I am not thrilled with this. First of all, anytime you lose a starting offensive lineman, you're not going to be thrilled with it. But specifically when Larry Borom is the replacement, I do not think he is good whatsoever. He had 69 snaps. Very nice. In the preseason this year for Miami. I do not think he was good whatsoever. The PFF grades were relatively kind for him. If you watch the film, you watch the games, he should not be getting grades in the 60s and 70s, I promise you that. Allowed 1 sack, 3 penalties, and he was being dominated in joint practices as well as just practices within the team. And I am not optimistic about him being your starting right tackle. I'm really not optimistic about the starting O-line in general. You have the 2 youngins over at the left side, Paul and Jonas Savinaya. Brewer still there at center. But you have Keion Smith going to get the start at right guard for James Daniels since he is on IR. And Larry Borom at right tackle. And it makes it even more difficult for Miami that Smith and Borom, that's Tua's blind side. Because of the lefty quarterback, he's got his back to him. That's just not good. And yes, Landry might be questionable for this game. If he gets to go against Larry Borom and Keion Smith, and then you also have Christian Barmore, Milton Williams, one of the best defensive interior duos in the NFL, going against this O-line, I'm just not thrilled about it, and I'm very skeptical. I'm very nervous. I don't like this whatsoever, especially after the film I saw Tua play with on Sunday. Can't imagine it's going to get much better this Sunday. Now, on Austin Jackson specifically, Barry Jackson made the note that there is no determination yet on how long Austin Jackson will be out. They have not placed him on IR yet, which tells you hopefully it will not be more than 3 weeks. If it was more than 3 weeks, they would have placed him on IR. So let's hope he's able to return next Thursday against the Buffalo Bills in week 3, or at least the worst idea, it being at home against the Jets in week 4. Pinned comment, confidence level in the Dolphins this week. I imagine it's pretty low. Not asking about the offensive line. I'm asking about the team in general. Pinned comment, let me know your thoughts down below. Oh, your weekly update about Darren Waller, folks. Shocker. Probably not going to play. I can't do it. This guy is a bum. I hate him. Yeah, literally one of my most hated Dolphins of all time, and he's never played. And he probably will never play either. I said it last week that there's a non-zero chance he never steps on the field for Miami. Well, Mike McDaniel almost confirmed that, saying today to media members, we have a chance, but might get to a point where we recognize the risk is too great for the rest of the season. Rest of the season? I wouldn't say I'm not expecting or not expecting. I'm open-minded to how the week progresses. Back to that statement. Rest of season? Are you kidding? It almost feels if he doesn't play this week for Miami, he will not play ever again for the Dolphins. Are you? I'm at a loss. Like, this just goes back to the incompetence that is our GM, Chris Grier, consistently signing players that never play. It started with Will Fuller. Last year was OBJ. And this year it's Darren Waller. I mean, shout out to whoever made this meme that came across my timeline on Twitter. I wish I knew I could give credit to. But it's a Spider-Man meme. They're all the same players. They sign, they never play. Like, I just can't do it. It drives me up a wall. It makes me literally just want to hit something, dude. It drives me insane that these players consistently sign or get traded for with Miami and never play. Like, I'm done. I'm over the experiment. I'm sorry. I would cut Darren Waller today. I don't care about seeing if he can get healthy to play in week 2. Cut him now. I'm done with the Waller experiment. Hell, I'm done with the Julian Hill experiment. Hell, I'm done with the Tanner Conner experiment. I want to try a new experiment. It's the player I was very excited that the Dolphins signed to their practice squad after roster cutdown day, Greg Dulcich, the former second-day pick who had an extremely good preseason with the Giants. Sign Greg Dulcich to the 53-man roster ASAP. I don't care if you cut Waller. I don't care if you cut Tanner Conner. Hell, I don't care if you cut Julian Hill. Cut one of the 3 bum tight ends and add Greg Dulcich to the group right now. All right, coming up in just 1 second, we're going to look at a week 2 preview between Miami and New England. Can the Dolphins get back on the right track? But I got to tell you about our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The right decision would be getting Darren Waller off the roster. With better decisions on PrizePicks, you can get paid where it's good to be right. It's simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. They put their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. PrizePicks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. They also offer injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks will not count it as a loss. And I'll have a couple entries in for this week. We'll start with the first one. More than Terry McLaurin, half a touchdown. I believe he gets into the end zone on Thursday night. Pair that up with the max discount of Travis Kelce, more than half a receiving yard. That is what I got for my first entry in week 2. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All right, let's transition to this week 2 matchup between Miami and New England, where it is in the Dolphins' home stadium, Hard Rock, and the over-under is 42.5. So Vegas is expecting a little bit of a lower-scoring game, and it's hard to blame them after you watch New England put up, 13 points last week. Miami only put up 8. The Dolphins are favorites in this game by about 1.5, which, if you are not aware how Vegas does their lines, they usually give a 2.5, 3-point boost to the home team, which means if this was being played on a neutral field, the Patriots would likely be favored by a point or a 1.5 themselves. All right, so the number one key to victory, in my opinion, is you have to run the football effectively. And I know it is hard to do, and it will be difficult to do, but if the Dolphins can run the ball efficiently this week against New England, it will set them up for massive success. And against the Colts in week 1, they actually had the second highest EPA, expected points added, per rush at positive 0.29. Second best in the NFL last year. But the reason why I said it's going to be difficult is because the Patriots defense, their strength is in their front four. They were dominant against the Raiders last week. The Raiders were able to move the football because Geno Smith was playing out of his mind and dotting up that secondary without Christian Gonzalez. But the defense for New England last week was third best in EPA per rush at negative 0.34. They were fourth in yards per carry allowed at 2.3. And they had a stuff percentage of 37.5. Forgot to put it on there. That was the best in NFL Week 1. So the Patriots' run defense against the Raiders was, if you combine all of the stats, the best run defense in football during Week 1. Can Miami effectively run the football against them? It will be difficult with Keion Smith and Larry Borom starting on that right side of the O-line. But if they're able to do that, they will likely get this win, which is why it's my number 1 key to victory. Number 2, you have to get home on Drake Maye without blitzing. How about this stat, folks? The Dolphins had a 48.5 blitz percentage against the Colts in Week 1. It was the highest in the NFL. But the issue was, with them blitzing that much, they only got to Daniel Jones in Week 1 24.2% of the time. That was the 29th highest pressure pressure rate in Week 1. So they blitzed the most without getting any pressure on Daniel Jones. If you do that consistently, your secondary is going to be left on an island, and the quarterback is going to be able to dot you up with ease. Good news is, I don't think you have to blitz to get pressure on Drake Maye and the New England Patriots. In Week 1, the Patriots O-line, which, by the way, is the weakest part of their team in general, they allowed Maye to be pressured on 35.8% of his dropbacks, 12th most in the NFL. So Drake Maye was pressured a ton, and watching the tape and watching the film a little bit on that Raiders-Patriots game, I honestly didn't see the Raiders bring a lot of pressure. They were able to get home with Malcolm Koonce, Tyree Wilson, with Max Crosby. And yes, they have a Max Crosby, but Miami does have, at least what I think, and I projected coming into the year, a really good edge group that features Chop, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Matthew Judon, Zach Sealer on the interior. Those 5 need to be wreaking havoc on this Patriots O-line, and I hope Anthony Weaver brings back the blitzes a little bit, and you can get home with just sending 4. Subscribe today. We're about 300 subscribers away from 74K. It would be awesome if we get to 74,000 before Week 2 on Sunday. You know what? I'll make this deal right now. We get to 74K before the game. I'll open up a beer bong in our tailgate portion of the stream. Number 3, prepare for a lot of screens. Listen, Dolphins fans should be aware of this. Josh McDaniels, the OC for the New England Patriots, he's been their OC for like 3 different stints and they're a long time. He runs a lot of screens. Well, in Week 1, they ran the 7th most screens. Drake Maye dropped back to throw a screen 5 times. That ranked the 7th most in NFL Week 1. A lot of teams ran about 1 or 2 screens behind the Patriots. But the point is, they like to utilize their backs in the passing game, specifically their second-round pick, Travion Henderson, and third down back, Antonio Gibson. So be on the lookout there. Miami is an inexperienced secondary who, especially if the Patriots feel as if that front 4 for Miami can get home often, you might see a lot of the quick passing game and screen game dialed up by Josh McDaniels in this Patriots offense, so be prepared for a ton of screens. They run them a lot. Number 4, this goes back to the Dolphins offense. You have to bring back some explosive plays. The Dolphins were the most explosive offense in football in 2022 and 2023, the first 2 years under Mike McDaniel. Last year, they were among the bottom 5 explosive offenses in football. Tua had the lowest and shortest ADOT amongst qualified NFL quarterbacks. Well, in Week 1, the Dolphins didn't have many explosive plays whatsoever. I think they only 2. And how about this stat? The Patriots defense in Week 1 against the Raiders allowed 9 receptions that amassed 20 yards or more. That was the most in football. Now, who knows? Maybe Christian Gonzalez is able to return, and that number probably decreases for a secondary that was shorthanded last week. The point is, though, if the Dolphins are able to take advantage of that weakened secondary that was susceptible to big passing plays, that would make the life easier on the entire Dolphins offense. And I hope that they're able to bring back explosive plays. I mean, if you look back at the Week 1 performance for this Tua-led passing attack, Tua only even attempted 2 passes that had 20-plus yards down the field in the air. Completed one of those 2. So he went 1 for 2 down the field when throwing it 20 yards plus. Like, he just has to threaten the defense. And when you watch the film, there were opportunities for Miami to hit Tyreek, hit Waddle. Maybe not 20 yards downfield, but 16, 17 yards downfield, where they were open. But Tua just came off those progressions or was a run-read quarterback throwing it before they could allow Hill and Waddle to get open down the field. You have 2 of the fastest wide receivers in football. Let them do their work. Trust your offensive line. Don't be so panicky. Don't get the happy feet and deliver an accurate ball down the field, Tua. Come on. I believe there's better days ahead for you specifically because it can't get worse than what it was in Week 1. All right, my official score prediction coming up in just 1 second, but let me hear yours first. Do it now. Get down in the comments and predict the score of Dolphins versus Patriots Week 2, a must-win game for both teams. Sorry, folks. I'm predicting a loss. Dolphins lose 2017. I'll explain why here in a little bit. Or right now, I should say. The reason why, I don't know why I said a little bit. But the reason why I think the Dolphins ultimately lose this game 2017 is because that offensive line. The O-line played relatively fine in Week 1, but that was with Austin Jackson playing most of the game. Larry Borum and Keion Smith on the right side, it scares me a lot. It just does. And with the Patriots front being so solid, I'm going to assume Harold Landry plays as of making this video. They have Milton Williams and Christian Barmore up front. I just think it's going to be difficult for Miami to move the football against this Patriots defense. And with the film and tape that I saw of Tua, almost looks like a broken quarterback, man. And I could only make my assumption and prediction based off what I saw in Week 1. I saw a broken, scared quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. And you take away another starting offensive lineman in Austin Jackson, and I'm expected to think it's going to get better. Just don't. I think it's a low-scoring game. I really like that under 42.5 this game, to be honest. And I give the Dolphins a loss, which means the Dolphins are likely going to start 0-3, losing on the road to the Bills in Week 3. And McDaniel's probably fired shortly after that. All right, that'll do it for today's show. We'll be back with multiple videos every day leading up to Week 2 between New England and Miami on Sunday. And then we'll be live for that game as well. So subscribe and join us.